I have heard it said that the day you want your daughter or son's childhood to end is the day you gift them with a smartphone.
Oh, yes. I 100% agree, because you're taking, honestly, what I think you're doing is you're taking away some of their innocence when you give them access to internet, because whether or not you trust your child or not, they will get into something that just curiosity in itself will lead them to. They may not intentionally be looking for harmful material or pornography or whatever it is. Let's just call it what it is. They're accessing things on the internet that are hurting and damaging to them, and we're giving them that access. And so I think you're taking away part of that innocence. But I do want to offer hope too. I think, oh gosh, we hear, I've taken away my child's innocence, and we think there's no hope. But that's not true. There is always hope to kind of retract maybe some things that you've already given your kid access to.
Hey guys, and welcome back to another episode of At Home with Emily, a podcast about creating a life you love. I'm your host, Emily Wood, and we are on part 2 of our Kids and Phones series. And Hannah Laxton, a counselor from Wellsprings Counseling in Republic, is back with us today. And, last time we were talking about a lot of the dangers that are lurking with phones and smartphones when we give those to our kids. And so I think, if we have a teen or a tween and they are, even 9, 10, 11, 12, maybe 13 years old, if you've held out, I know they're asking you for a phone, guys. I get that. And I work with 7th grade girls at my church. And so I know everybody wants a phone.
Yeah.
And as a parent, though, maybe you've held out because instinctually, I don't want to do this.
Yeah.
And that, by the way, that is your instinct as a mom or as a dad telling you. Because
Yeah.
Okay, so first of all, wouldn't you say trust that instinct?
Oh, goodness, yes. Don't fall into the trap of pressure from your child. First of all, you're the parent, they're the child. So don't feel pressure from them to do something that is premature, that they are not ready for. 100% follow that instinct. It's there for a reason.
And so how do you know when the right time is?
So I would say that every kid is different, but not when it comes to access to a phone. They have different maturity levels. They have different things like that. But if you have a really, really, really mature 13-year-old, that doesn't mean that they're ready for a phone, because even a really mature 13-year-old compared to an immature 13-year-old they're still a child.
Developmentally. Our brains, we know our brains are not developed at 13.
Yeah.
Or 16 or 18 or 20 for most of us.
So I don't think set an age on it. I don't think it's an age thing.
It's not something to aspire to, right? Like when you are 14, that's when we're going to get you one.
Right. And
because all of a sudden it becomes a prize.
Yes. And we do that for dating. We do that for phones. There's a certain age that we set. And I would just like to change the narrative that don't make it a specific age. Make it when your child is ready. And how would you know they're ready? That's the question. How do we know when it's time? And as we talked about in the last episode, there's going to be a lot of reasons why they will ask for a phone. But the only reason that I have ever come up with and talk to parents about that makes sense is that when they are driving and they're in a car alone, or they're going to be alone, they need access to you. If something happens, they need access to you. They need access to the police. You want to know that while they're driving, they have a way to get a hold of you or the police. So to me, that's the only time, or that's the first time that it feels like, okay, I want to make sure they're safe. And me as a parent, that's how I'm going to make sure that I can get a hold of them. But does that mean you have to give them a smartphone? No, they need to get a hold of you. They don't need access to the internet.
Especially while they're driving as a new driver.
While they're driving. And I've had parents say, well, what if they get lost and they need the map feature? Okay, well, they actually still make a Garmin. I don't know if you had
TomTom. Yeah.
still make some things that you can mount in your phone to give them access to be able to know where they're going if they were to get lost. But they can also call you and say, Mom, I'm on Elm Street. Where do I go from here? So there's no reason that I have ever had a parent talk to me about that is good enough to give them access to a smartphone, even when they can drive. Let them start very slow. And my husband and I have the concept that we like to talk about called prolonging firsts. And we didn't talk about this earlier, but it basically means as soon as you give them access to something, they will want the next thing. So as soon as you give them access to, say the first thing they have access to is a smartphone that has social media, internet, all the things, they're going to want more. So if all you give them access to is just the phone part, not even texting, maybe texting and phone, whatever you feel comfortable with as a parent to start with, but they're going to want what's next. So start them slow. Start them with the least amount that they would absolutely need, and then assess from there what they can handle.
How are we doing with this?
Yes. Yeah.
And I think too, I have heard it said that the day you want your daughter or son's childhood to end is the day you gift them with a smartphone.
Oh, yes. I 100% agree, because you're taking, honestly, what I think you're doing is you're taking away some of their innocence when you give them access to internet, because whether or not you trust your child or not, they will get into something that just curiosity in itself will lead them to. They may not intentionally be looking for harmful material or pornography or whatever it is. Let's just call it what it is. They're accessing things on the internet that are hurting and damaging to them, and we're giving them that access. And so I think you're taking away part of that innocence. But I do want to offer hope too. I think, oh gosh, we hear I've taken away my child's innocence and we think there's no hope, but that's not true. There is always hope to kind of retract maybe some things that you've already given your kid access to.
So when you're talking about that, so let's say that I'm a parent of a teen and I thought I had safeguards in place for their phone or for their games, and something has gone wrong. Or I've noticed that they were accessing some things that I didn't want them to. Well, they're a teenager. It is their job to push limits and test boundaries and see if they hold. Right? I mean, that's part of being a kid, and knowing that you have a safety net there. And so let's say that has happened and we are feeling some regret as a family, or it's not looking how we wanted it to as a family. Right. What do we do?
Yeah, I would say don't be afraid to take some steps back. I would much rather be an unpopular parent. I would much rather my kid be upset with me and take responsibility, first of all. I think if I've given this advice to parents a lot, you need to take responsibility that you gave your child access to this and you should not have. And so, yes, did they make mistakes? Should they have done what they did? No. But I'm actually going to take this one on this is my fault because I gave you access to something that you weren't ready for. So I would say, first of all, apologize to your kids. Man, mom and dad made a mistake. We gave you a phone too early. You're not ready for that. You weren't responsible enough for it yet because of your age and your maturity. So we're really sorry that we did that to you. So we're gonna take back some steps.
And guess what? It's gonna be a big emotion.
Yeah, it is.
I mean, we learn that as parents from the time that they're little.
When you
take away the favorite toy, all heck is gonna break loose. Yeah. And even if you're out in public or you're somewhere or you're whatever, just get ready for it.
Yep.
Because you know you're doing the right thing.
Yes, and the right thing is not always easy, and it will not feel like the right thing to your child in the moment. But like I said, I would much rather my child be upset with me for however long
and come back and thank you when they are a mom or when they are in college or when they see their friends going through something that you have protected them from.
Exactly. I would much rather have a kiddo that's upset with me rather than one who is in a really bad situation that they could get into with phones and access to internet and things like that. So,
well, and it doesn't take phones for the bad guys to get a hold of kids.
right.
But this is just a fast pass.
Yeah. It gives easy access.
Mm-hmm.
It gives easy access for predators to find your children when they have a phone. But back to your original question, so what do we do if we've crossed that line and crossed that boundary?
Right. And you were talking about taking some steps back.
Yeah.
Are you talking about taking the phone away?
I mean,
they may burn the house down.
that would be my number one thing would be then just take the phone away.
But provide a substitute. Okay,
Yes.
this is something I believe in as a parent.
Yeah.
So my oldest, he checked out a book from the library and we didn't feel it was appropriate for him.
Yeah.
Some of the language that was in it.
Yeah.
And so we explained it to him. And we got him some new cool books that were written in a similar fashion, but with values that we supported as a family.
Yeah.
And so my thought is, when you take away something that you're banning,
Yes.
you replace it with something else.
Yeah.
What about a really cool day, just me and you,
Yeah.
and we're going to go do something fun together?
Yes. And we talked about that quality time that is missed out on when they have a phone. I mean, we've all been to dinner and seen a family and all of them, or maybe the parents are talking and the kids are on tablets or phones or whatever. And you're like,
something's not right here.
Yeah, you came to dinner to have quality time with each other and we're on devices during that. And adults are guilty of it too.
Oh, yeah.
My husband and I will be on a date sometimes and I'm like, what are we doing? But that's not why we came here, put it away. So I'm not trying to blame children for things because adults are doing the same thing. It's just that as adults.
And by the way, we are modeling this for them. That's a whole nother podcast.
Why do they want phones? Because they see it in our hand all the time,
They see us on them all the time,
Yes.
And it's important to communicate. Mommy's working, mommy's doing this, mommy has to reply to the lady coming on her podcast, or whatever the case is, but still also being mindful of that as a parent. But two, I really do think replacing that and being intentional.
Yes.
And so we know a family who lives in Texas, but I love seeing how they are raising their kids. They have a busy household. They have 4 teenagers, okay? So none of them have phones, which is really counterculture.
Yeah.
And you know what they do? They have an iPod Touch, like an old one from back in the day, and it sits in the kitchen, and it has the name of each child when the messages come in.
Yeah.
So that they can still do that, but it's on a kind of a public forum.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? They don't have an ability to send photos, but they can still have that texting. And then what the parents have done is just gone into the extreme of making their home the place of the other kids want to come.
Yes. I think that is
activities, food, time together. They have dirt bikes. They do all the things. And they have the kids put the phones up when they come. And nobody minds doing it.
Yeah.
And so you have to really dig in, I think, to create that counterculture household. Yeah. But I've seen that it can happen.
And you used a great word when you said intentional, because that's what it takes. It's easier to hand a kid a phone than it is to be intentional with your time. But if we can get used, anything is a habit, right? Anything you do creates a habit. So if the habit is give them a phone, let them be, okay, then that's the habit that was built. But you can totally change that habit back to we're a family that's intentional with our time. We're a family that spends quality time together. And just some practical things I would say, if you've given your kiddo access to, a smartphone that has full access, there are different things. There's Bark phones, that's one. There's a Bark app you can put on your kid's phone. There are things you can do to take a step back. If the option in your mind is, I can't just take the phone, if that's where you're at, if you're sick, because I want to offer a solution. If you're not like, okay, great, I'll just take the phone, then what are some other things? So the theory that you're going to go through your child's phone and that be the only safeguard is not going to work. It's not enough, because our kids are smart and they've been around.
And they're smarter than we are.
They delete things. They know. I will say this, if you don't know this as a parent, you can delete things and then you can go in the deleted folder and delete things from the deleted folder. And kids know how to do that. So even when you check what have they deleted, they can still delete things from there. So it's just that just seems so complicated to me to make that be the only safeguard, because you'll never know what they're actually doing if that's your only safeguard. Yes, go through their phone, please, but don't let that be the only thing. Let there be parental controls. Let them have to ask you before they get any app on their phone. Let them have to go through your password. Like, I have to put my password in before you can have any access to things. There's just things in place that thankfully people have invented, much smarter than me, that know how to do this technology stuff, that they've put in some safeguards. So if you're going to let your kid have the phone, or if you've already let them have a phone, minimum, put every safeguard you possibly can on that phone to protect them.
And by the way, the easiest safeguard is putting the phone away, and you take possession of the phone and iPad and watch and anything else when it's time to shut that off.
Yes. And it doesn't have to just be bedtime. Like, that would be my encouragement too. Like,
at a minimum.
Set it, minimum, when they go to bed, do not let them keep any device in their room at all. And not only just put it in the kitchen. If you are worried about, maybe you've got a sneaky kiddo who's done some things, they'll go to the basement to play video games at 2 a.m. I've seen it, you've heard about it. So it's like, don't give them the access to it. So put it in your room, wherever, a central location, but sometimes even the parent's bedroom is the best place to keep all of that stuff at night. But I mean, even talking about like a 7 p.m. cutoff, doesn't have to just be when they go to bed at 9:30 or 10. It can be, okay, from 7 o'clock on, no screen, no immediate, I'm not saying they can't watch TV.
And you feel like that would make a big difference.
Oh, a huge difference, because that increases quality time as a family. That decreases the amount of time they have access to things. And it only gives them you need this during a certain part of your day. I understand that parents will let them have it at school or after school activities. But once you're home, I'm not sure that we need it. So that would just be my thought about how to kind of retract if you've already given full access.
And have you seen people do that successfully?
Yes, I have parents who we talked about a story in the last episode. A kiddo got in a really bad situation and they completely retract. And I will say, I have watched that family build back what was lost and build back and restore trust she has trust with her parents. Her parents are working on building trust back with her. It's just been a real transformation once they eliminated, and they actually completely took it away. They didn't just slowly step back. They completely took it away. And to watch that girl thrive and to be happy again, she thought she was happy. She thought she was happy when she had all that access to the world. But then me and her parents realized what true joy she could have whenever they took that away. And that's hard. It was not easy. I don't want to sugarcoat that. It's very hard to retract.
And I just want to say too, the reason that you are your child's parent is because you know what's best for your child.
Yeah. Yep.
Your child does not know. And your child is counting on you to guide them.
Yes.
They may not like it at the time, but they will thank you.
Yes. Oh, yes. I mean, how many times can you and I say, man, I didn't understand why my mom or dad did that, but wow. Thank you. Thank you for protecting me from that. Thank you for keeping me safe when I didn't know how to keep myself safe, because it's not their job. It's our job. My mother-in-law always says, it's my job to keep you safe. It's your job to help me. And she says that with my little ones, but I think that applies to teenagers and tweens. And, it's my job to keep you safe, but it's your job to help me with that. Whenever I give you a responsibility or I give you something, I need you to learn how to be responsible. But I'm not going to give you something that you can't be responsible for. I'm going to give it to you at the right age when you're the right maturity to handle it. And so I think that's a good phrase that I kind of keep in the back of my mind with clients.
And a 13 and 14-year-old is not mature.
They're not mature. They're not mature. And that's what I said earlier, like even the most mature, like I remember people telling me like, man, you're really mature for a 13-year-old, and at the time I was like, oh, wow, I must be like, I can handle anything, but that is not, I think even using that word is not true, and it's not their fault. It's just that they're a child. They're a child, and they shouldn't have to be more mature than they are. They should get to live a fun, carefree childhood, and that we're taking that away from them when we give them access to the phones. So,
Hannah, thank you for speaking truth from your experience as a counselor who sees this every day. We appreciate your time.
Yes, thank you for having me.
And thank you so much for joining us for this episode of At Home with Emily. If you are watching us on YouTube, please be sure to like and subscribe so you are notified when the next episode drops. You can also follow us on social media at Around the Ozarks and head to aroundtheozarks.com and sign up for our daily newsletter. We'll see you next time.